Book Dragons. It is your girl Lindsay with the Spine Bookcast. Thank you for tuning in today. We have a very, very special episode today that I'm very excited about. We have Tiffany and Carrie from the Rutherford County Library Alliance, and we are going to talk about book banning. I don't know if you guys listened to a couple episodes back, but I talked about what had happened in Rutherford County. And so we have two people who have invited me to participate in the war on restricting access to information. And so, Carrie and Tiffany, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for doing this
us.
podcast.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Who wants to kind of introduce what's been going on in Rutherford County right now? Do you want to do it, Tiffany, or do you want to do it, Carrie?
Your call, Tiff.
You go ahead, Carrie.
All right. Recently, as I'm sure everyone is aware, there's been a bit of a political war going on about accessing information. And in Tennessee specifically, they have created laws to restrict access to information specifically for persons 18 and under, claiming that persons 18 and under, and I do know I'm saying which includes 18-year-olds, but according to certain representatives, persons 18 and under have no rights. Now, the Supreme Court has said that that is very wrong and has reaffirmed multiple times that everyone has the same constitutionally guaranteed rights. But in this, let's protect the children vein, they have created a new law that went into effect this past summer, which is called the Age Appropriate Materials Act. And they are using that to unconstitutionally remove information from schools so our children can't access that information. They've removed over 40 books so far at the Rutherford County School District, with 10 more on the chopping block coming up. The vast majority of these challenges have all come from one school board member who says, this is the law and we have to follow the law. However, he's actually breaking the law because in our law, we have something called the Supremacy Clause, which says any local or state law that contradicts federal law or the Constitution is an invalid and unenforceable law.
Okay.
But our school board feels that they don't need to follow federal law because they don't like the feds telling them what to do. And the Constitution, they seem to just pretend doesn't exist. And so they are using their definition of obscene to remove materials that do not meet the legal definition of obscene. And the Supreme Court spent decades literally trying to define the word obscene and determine that it's too difficult. Obscene is one of those words where everyone goes, well, I know it when I see it, but I can't quite describe where that line is.
Sure.
So the Supreme Court came up with the Miller test, which is a 3-prong test, and you must all 3 prongs of the test for something to be criminally obscene.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, our school board seems to go, nope, they meant X, or they mentioned LGBTQ plus, or they mentioned a mental health disorder, or whatever it is that they find offensive. And they're saying, well, to them, that's obscene, so it's illegal and it has to be removed. But that's not the way the law works. And that's why we're fighting.
So go over the Miller test with me. You said that there were 3 things. What are those 3 things?
Yes, of course, I don't have it written out directly in front of me.
That's totally fine.
Well, I bet I can find it if you give me 1 second here.
Well, while you're doing that,
here it is.
Go ahead.
The average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest. And I'm going to stop here and define prurient interest for you, because prurient interest, again, is a term that's not used a lot in our day-to-day interactions with people.
Sure.
And most people only recognize the word prurient from the Supreme Court case about obscenity, the Miller case.
Sure.
And so they sort of equate it in their head, whatever their I know it when I see it definition for obscene is, They
Sure.
also use that for prurient, but prurient actually means an abnormal and unhealthy interest in sex. Other areas in the law, they have mentioned a morbid or shameful interest in sex.
Sure.
But the Supreme Court Justice Brennan, who worked so hard at trying to define obscenity, basically said the material is so repulsive, it makes you want to vomit while also experiencing physical sexual excitement.
I remember
So you
at the thing, the lawyer said that. I remember you saying that.
yes. So basically, if you're a male and you're reading this, you find it so stimulating that you have a physical response,
Sure.
an erection. I just
Okay.
want to be clear. I'm sure we can say that word here. You would
Yeah.
have an erection while also vomiting because you are so repulsed that you got an erection from what you were reading. It's that repulsive that you are going to be both sexually excited and then physically repulsed
Right.
reading. So
Sure.
that is the level that prurient interest is. And taken as a whole means from cover to cover, that material has no purpose other than to both sexually excite and repulse you.
Okay.
The Supreme Court has even said most pornography films do not meet the legal bar for obscenity because if it's a pizza delivery guy showing up, there's a story about a pizza
Sure.
delivery guy.
Yeah, I
So
remember that as well.
it is a very, very high bar
Right.
to meet that. And that is prong one.
Okay.
Prong two, the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct.
Okay.
And three, the work taken as a whole lacked serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value.
Right.
So notice that two of the three prongs include taken as a whole. And that basically means you can't take a word, a sentence, a paragraph, even a chapter. And you have to look from the front cover to the back cover and find that there is nothing in that book other than appealing to the prurient interest being patently offensive.
Yeah.
So the legal bar of obscenity is extremely high. And
Right.
our school board doesn't seem to understand just how high that bar is.
I don't
Well, and I think they
honestly,
just don't care.
that's what I was going to say. I don't think that they
Yeah.
care because I'm struggling to what I can say and what I can't say because I know some of the stuff that we know is rumor, but we know it to be true, but we don't have proof that it's true, and I don't want to get sued. But there are definitely
Yeah.
some things going on down here that are not above board, I feel like. And
Absolutely.
I know that Tiffany, you and I have been harassed for
Mhm.
speaking out. And I don't know if you have, Carrie. Have you been harassed?
I think I have, but I really bury my head in the sand. I can't think
Sure.
about it too much because I know how real the threat is here.
Yeah.
I know I've been in public and I get looks, and I know one time Tiffany actually pointed out to me people in Walmart looking at me weird or whatever. And I try to stay oblivious because otherwise I think I wouldn't leave the house. I would just be too afraid to leave the house. So
Yeah.
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 And it's the problem here in Rutherford County is it is so ingrained and has become normalized in our county, being sued by the ACLU, paying lawsuits, routinely paying lawsuits for civil rights being violated here. People don't blink or bat an eye at it here. It's
Yeah.
just, it's because there's so many people that live here who have never lived elsewhere and
Yeah.
don't educate themselves on how the way things operate in other areas because
Sure.
a whole, you know, a whole spectrum of reasons, but they don't know that it's not normal to routinely have to pay people, children, the families of children, for imprisoning them
Yeah.
unlawfully. Um, just ACLU suing and the city having
Yeah.
to pay 500,000 plus
I
legal
rem
fees.
I
Not the
Make it,
remember
city,
well,
us.
I
It's our
remember hearing
taxpayer
about
dollars.
yeah.
well, I remember hearing about that podcast about the juvenile delinquents, which I hate as a word, but the children who were in juvenile jail being,
Yeah. The Kids of Rutherford County, name
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then shortly after Rutherford County, we had that election to try and get the court system moved out of Smyrna into Rutherford County. And I remember thinking,
Yeah.
hell no, y'all have so far
Yep.
proven you can't handle that responsibility with any type of legal fare. And when I remember when Tiffany first reached out to me, I didn't know that the removal of these books, because I'm trying to watch my words because of what I said earlier, but the removal of these books, it's heartbreaking because I've read most, if not all of them, including the 10 that went up on the chopping block this week. I've read most of them. And there is substantive,
Substantive.
substantive. That is the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Value in the stories that these books tell, and the and I air quote offensive because I don't really think it's offensive sections that people are complaining about are like 1% of the book.
Yes.
And the
Like,
thing is with the ones that are being banned in our schools, well, I know we're not supposed to say banned, the ones that are being removed from our schools, they're not coming from a parent, they're coming from one board member who is using a Moms for Liberty associated website to target which books
and
every month.
And
Or
Moms for
yeah,
Liberty, that's a group out of Florida that the federal government flagged as a hate group. Is that my understanding correctly?
the
The
Southern
Southern
Poverty Law
Poverty
Center.
Law Center has labeled
That's
them an extremist anti-government group.
okay. Okay. I knew somebody had, but I wanted to make sure that I had my information right. And so, like, I look at some of these books, like Fade, for example, by Lisa McCann. That book is about a girl who gets psychic visions her family has a pizza joint and they have like their mortal enemies, which is the other pizza joint across town. And she has psychic visions about a horrific accident and ends up saving that family's pizza joint and their lives. And I'm trying to think like what could possibly be objectionable about this girl being the hero in this book? And then you have things like The Giver. That's an anti-government, post-apocalyptic, what is the word I'm looking for?
Dystopian.
That's the word,
Dystopian.
dystopian book. And, I just, I look at some
My
of,
son
It's right
was
up their
assigned
alley,
that
right?
book in grade 7. My son was assigned that book in school. In
right,
schools,
Ender's
he had to
Game
read
is
that
on
book
here.
as part of his curriculum.
Well, like Ender's Game is on here, A Clockwork Orange, 1984. And I I look at Skippy John Jones is on the American Library's 100 it's what?
Yeah.
And so I look
Yeah.
and I keep pictures of this list on my phone. So that anytime I have that second of, oh, maybe there's some no, because these are the same people that are putting the Diary of Anne Frank on here.
Right.
And
Yep.
the Lorax, you don't want people to take care of the environment.
The Lorax
Lorax
is
is
on the
both.
list.
I don't know if it's on the top 100, but I've seen that book be removed from schools and libraries. I'm not saying here specifically, but
Sure.
that book has been targeted. They say it's because it's propaganda, because it talks about your environmental impact and trying to protect the environment. So they labeled that as propaganda.
Cat in the Hat has been banned, not here, but it's been banned too, like because it teaches kids to invite strangers in, I think was the
Oh, I
reasoning.
thought it was a disrespect for authority because the cat was
Oh,
getting them
that's
to
what it
do things
was.
apparent. I don't know for sure. I'm not up on the reason behind every single book. It's just, and one thing to keep in mind is that this happens from both sides of the political spectrum. It is not
Yes.
just the far right that wants to ban books. The far
Yeah.
left wants to ban books as well. And I think the best example of that is Harry Potter books. It
Mhm.
used to be the far right wanting it banned because of witchcraft and sorcery and whatever anti-religion
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
beliefs. Now you've got left wanting those books banned because of the view of the author. She has come out as being very
Oh,
anti-trans,
yeah.
and so now the left wants those books removed. So this is an issue that comes from both sides of the political spectrum.
It
And
is.
also why our color is purple, because we don't care. It's not a
Yeah.
Democrat issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's an everybody issue. Red and blue make purple. And
Mhm.
that's why purple is our color. That's very important to me because we may see attacks or feel like attacks are only coming from one side. And that is very, very far from true.
That's
It
true. I
happens
mean, we see
from
that.
both sides.
We see
Well,
that within our own group, people wanting to, ban certain books, and we've
Yeah,
had to come out and make statements. We are against book banning. We can't become the thing that we're fighting against.
well,
Just to
exactly.
get back at you.
I remember when you asked me and I went to the first meeting, I had absolutely no clue, honestly, to be fair to myself. I had no clue what that committee or that meeting was going to look like, right? And I remember listening to them ham and haw over this law and this and that and the other, and listening to the other side be disruptive and very aggressive and shouting at us and calling us names and staring at us with these dagger-like looks when we'd walk up there and then sit back down. And then one of the guys who was yelling at us and screaming and calling us pornographers, he went back and was talking to one of the officers in the back of the room, which immediately negated any safety or sense of safety that I had, because I was like, you're talking to the very person that makes me feel unsafe. I no longer trust in your ability to keep me safe from your friend.
Yeah.
And then I just remember being shocked at how muddy the waters were on the issue and how they kept back and forth and back and forth. And then they had the one guy who I really appreciated what he had to say, because he was like, and I'm not, this is not a direct quote. I'd have to go look back exactly what he said, but the essential essence of what he said was, I don't want these books in the library either, but this isn't about my personal beliefs. This is what we can legally do. So why can't we have a compromise? Why can't we have a mature section and get permission slips from parents to, and I thought that was a good compromise. You guys got a different section.
I
Oh,
don't.
no,
I'm going to
absolutely.
argue that the
But
good compromise is what's already in place, and that is
yeah,
any parent who does not want their child to access certain information sends a note into their librarian and says, my child does not have permission to take out any,
sure.
sexually explicit material or whatever.
Right.
You always have to be an opt-in for restricting access to information, because there was a case in Wichita Falls, Texas, in which they tried to have a petition system to remove books that parents objected to. And the judge says every parent has a right to dictate what their child has access to,
Right.
but no parent has the right to dictate what anyone else's child has a right to access. And the program has to be opt in for restriction, not opt out for access. And that was also in the Denver versus FCC Supreme Court case. That was about TV channels, but you have to in or opt out. And
Yeah.
they say that opting into being allowed to see it removes away the browsing option, and
Yeah.
you have to be able to browse so anyone can walk in, see it's there, and make a decision instead of knowing they have to go ask the librarian for it
Yeah.
behind a desk
Yeah.
or they need a permission slip. So I will argue that one
No,
because
and that's
my only
fine.
concern is that follow the law.
And
They
that's
ask
what I'm
us where
saying.
we're going to draw the line. Not going to draw a line. Follow the
My whole
Supreme
point in
Court,
bringing
the
that
line
up
they drew.
is that I was shocked, like, because I didn't know that. So, and you're absolutely right. But at the time, I didn't know that. And so I was like, okay, that's a good compromise. That's fair. At least he's trying to find some middle ground here. And all of
Mm-hmm.
the opposing people in white were all, no, no, no. And they were being disruptive and wouldn't let him finish speaking. And he
Yeah.
finally turned around and said, oh, shut up. He said, I mean, I don't, you
Yeah.
guys have gotten up here and you've said your and you've said your thing for shock value and you've gotten your little moment of fame. And he said, I honestly don't think that you people are going to be happy until we take these books out in the front lawn and set them on fire. And for me, I had
Yeah.
this moment in my heart of, oh God, is that a possibility? Like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Yeah. I
no.
mean, we see it in
Mission's famous for
Wilson
it.
County. Yeah. We saw that in Wilson County with an extremist church there that's lost their tax status, you know. I don't want to say the name because I don't
No.
want to promote him, but um, they set a huge pile of books on fire. I mean, and we've seen it in other states using flamethrowers because
That
America
just
to light books on fire.
it scared the shit out of me.
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah.
no, we're not going to burn books. Germany did that and then put Jews in concentration camps. So we're going to I mean, this country clearly didn't learn its lesson because we put
Yeah.
Asian people in concentration camps. And it now seems like they're wanting to put LGBTQ community in, and
Yes.
like
Yes.
when I said, because I got up there and spoke and I was talking about how, you may not want to read about all this stuff and it may be uncomfortable and it may be hard, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't because it's there. You can't just ignore it and close your eyes and put your head in the sand and ignore the issue because you don't like it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I agree. I agree. It's it's very disheartening to see. And I go back and forth on this. Was it always like this? Were these people always like this? And I just didn't see it. I mean, I saw racism, I saw bigotry here, but I see the hate, like the amount of hate. And I think you should be dead because you don't agree with me on one thing. It could be
Yeah.
one thing. You deserve to not be alive anymore because you disagree with me. Was it always like this, or have they just been walked carefully led down that path over the past however many years,
I think
since
it's always been that way, but it's been quiet. And now
yeah,
they feel emboldened that there are more people that feel like me and it's safe to say it out loud. They're saying the
yeah,
quiet parts out loud. Just
yeah,
my opinion, but
Yeah.
I think people have always had hate in their hearts. They've just learned that it wasn't socially acceptable to act on it.
Yeah.
And now they feel that it's okay to act on it. It's
yeah,
okay to say these things out loud. It's okay to attack other people. It's okay to restrict access to information. It's okay to harm other people. Like I remember when the square got boarded up and we had the people marching with their tiki torches.
That
yeah,
was
I
awful.
mean, what year is this?
Well,
yeah,
and when I told Tiffany, and I'm not going to out my friend or I'm not going to out the church that's doing this, I'm not going to do that. But, I have a friend that goes to the church that is trying to back all the restrictive access. And, I spoke, and when I spoke, I said, my name is Lindsay Schultz. I own the Spine Bookshop because I wanted to be represented as a business owner, not personal, which I very
right,
specifically did that. And so she called me and she said, did you speak at the Rutherford County School Board meeting the other night? I said, yeah. And she said, well, you should know that your name was brought up. And I said, excuse me? And she said, yeah, your bookstore was brought up in a discussion, and the phrase, we need to do something about that little bookstore came up. And I said, excuse me? So the
yeah,
fact that I spoke out, and I think that what I said was very educated and respectful and polite. And, I tried not to be accusatory. It was very much like trying to speak for people who couldn't speak for themselves. So I got up and did that.
Right.
And now your church body is going to come after my business, which I use to feed my family,
Right.
because you don't like
Yeah.
what I have to say.
Yeah. And it's a mega church. It's not just like a small church with like
No,
a
it's a
hundred
mega
or a
church.
few hundred. It's thousands upon thousands with some of the most influential people in our county in politics and business that attend
Yeah.
it specifically because of that.
And I remember sitting there
And
going, excuse me?
yeah,
Like, I'm not even
yeah,
in Murfreesboro. What? I mean, what are
but
you
you
going to
spoke
do? Pick
one
at my
time.
store? Like,
You spoke one time for 3 minutes or less in a public meeting. But then the argument too that they give is books, we're not banning these books. You can get them at the public library. Not necessarily true because all of you have been targeting our public library long before our school libraries.
yeah.
And or you can go buy it, but then they're targeting bookshops if you
Mhm.
speak out one time and shut the shop
Yeah,
down.
I had
Well,
somebody
the
So
come in the
state law,
shop.
it's
I had somebody come in the shop and she walked in and said, "Is this the store that likes to sell pornography to children?" And I just immediately was like, "Get out." You know, and the fact that I'm being called a pornographer and a groomer
right,
and
right.
like, because I saw, and I mean anybody that knows me knows, and you can ask my customers, if you come in and you're buying your kid something and I think, how, and I will ask, how old is your kid? Oh, so and I will even say at my own, like, you not buying it, that might not be the best book for you to buy because it has this and
Mhm.
this and this. But then I always try to have a suggestion of, okay, so if it's a boy and you have this, why don't you try this book instead? It might be more age appropriate.
Right.
Because I
Yeah.
try to be
Yeah.
very conscious about that.
Because you're
And-
a responsible bookstore owner and you want to make sure that you're not harming
right.
children.
But I also want
But
to
at
make
the end of the
sure
day,
that
it's
representation is very, very, very important. So like
right.
when
Yeah.
they banned, not banned, Carrie,
restricting access to information.
yes, they did This Book is Gay, Flamer, Gender Queer, and I can never remember what the
Let's
fourth
talk
one.
about it.
Yes, thank you. So,
Wonderfully, fearfully made.
yeah. So
Queerfully and wonderfully made. Yeah.
when because my bookshop runs an LGBTQ book club as well. And so when the book club
Mhm.
found out, they were like, okay, so that's what we're reading for the next 4 months. And I went and got several copies of each book. And I will tell you, just as a straight person who is still learning all the lingo and is still learning what phrases are good, what phrases mean, that kind of stuff. Genderqueer helped me understand non-binary status in a way I had never understood it before. And it was like a
Mhm.
light had gone off, and it was just like that's what that's what that means. Okay, I get that because I read that book. I now had, oh, that makes so much more sense to me. And this book is gay. It's not just an
Mhm.
LGBTQ book. It's literally, this is what straight is. This is what gay is. This is what trans is. This is
Yeah.
what bi is. This is what all the words are. This is a vagina. This is a
Yep.
penis. This is what and it's literally across the board of, this is your body. This is what this means. And this is how to react in this situation. And,
Yep.
Flamer, it's a heartbreakingly sad comic about this little boy who's gay and he goes to a church camp and he's trying to and I look at that and I read those. And because I read those books, I felt, for me, it was a whole different level of understanding that I never
Yeah.
had before. And the
Yeah.
fact that they're
As
trying
long
to
as we're
take that
talking about,
away.
so as long as we're talking about that book and if we're talking about sex education, I think something that is very relevant. This is something my husband testified about this at the
I
state
love your
Senate hearing.
husband.
I brought this up. I was invited to speak in Nashville this summer at the Freedom to Be Heard event.
Sure.
So
Sure.
This is just a little bit from it, but I think this is really, really relevant because you're talking about, it tells you this is your body. Basically, this is how your body works. Different
Right.
people have different bodies, whatever. Um, Rutherford County is one of the worst counties to live in if you're a teenager and you don't want to have an STD or get pregnant. Our rates are insane. And here it is. For example, according to data from the CDC, in 2022, Tennessee had the sixth highest teen birth rate in the country and was surpassed only by 5 other southern states who share the same legislative philosophies pertaining to sex ed. Along with that alarming statistic, in 2023, Rutherford County TD rate amongst teens aged 15 to 17 was 11.9 per thousand.
Oh,
What is worse is these rates have been increasing as laws restricting access to information have been increasing. Even worse still, the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth has acknowledged that, and I quote, an additional challenge for Rutherford County is a rate of pregnancy amongst girls aged 15 to 17 that is higher than most of the other counties rating in the top 10 overall. So to improve outcomes, the Commission on Children and Youth advocated for, wait for it, comprehensive sex education, as it has been shown to reduce the number of teen pregnancies and the STD rate. And not in that speech, this happened, the data came out after. There is a county just outside of Memphis where the HIV rate teens has gone up like 150%.
oh my
And
God.
another STD has also gone up more than 100%. In the last couple of years, since they started restricting access to information, our numbers are skyrocketing and they were already at the top. And the state's like, okay, we need better comprehensive sex education to protect our children. And then we have the other side, they're restricting access to information. So our children can't access that information. And as far as it only being available in like the schools saying we get at the library, like Tiffany said, no, the laws that were written, it's Age Appropriate Materials Act. That law was not written for schools. It was written for everyone in the state.
Yeah.
So that means no adult can give anyone under 18 sex education materials.
Right.
Not if you're
I'll be damned.
a publisher, an author, a bookstore owner, a teacher, a librarian, a parent.
I'll be damned.
The law is written in a way there are no exceptions. It actually says there are no exceptions for literary, educational, or scientific purposes.
So while they're saying our kids need comprehensive sex ed, we are not allowed to teach them in schools. I teach it to my son.
I teach it to my kids too.
You have to. And that's the message, right? Well, they should be learning that at home. But I mean, I do a lot of work. Our group is nonpartisan. I personally, at least for an American, Carrie will tell me, I'm progressive at least for an American, especially in Tennessee. So I do a lot of work either a lot of times alongside like our Planned Parenthood group here in Rutherford County. I've attended those meetings and spoke at a meeting there with them. And we'll often RCLA will be tabled at an event that our Planned Parenthood chapter here is also tabled at. So I go and I grab material for him. They give out condoms, they give out dental dams, they give out lube and all kinds of pamphlets for, different information about birth control, about, getting tested, just a whole realm of issues. And I make sure I hit that table because he's not getting it at school. I had hoped my child would have a better sex ed class than I did, but I'm originally from Michigan. In 6th grade in Michigan, I got better sex ed course than I did as a high schooler in Arkansas, where I went to high school. And I had hoped that for my son, it would be better in Tennessee by the time that, he was a teenager, but it's not, it's worse.
Yeah.
It's worse than it was when I was growing up.
we don't have sex ed here, let alone comprehensive sex ed. And I think it's worth noting the difference. Sex ed is the class that you get, in health class or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the body part. This is how this work,
Sure,
sperm,
sure.
egg, all of that. Comprehensive sex education is where there's representation across all subjects. So if you are reading a book in English class, it might focus on an LGBTQ plus character. It's normalizing the relationships, that these are normal, this is a part of society, and it gets all of society to be accepting that everyone is different. Different people have different needs, they have different wants, they have different likes. So comprehensive sex education is what is really, really needed, and goes a step beyond just your sex ed class.
Yeah.
And comprehensive sex education is what the UN has put out, like for a global scale. This is what everybody needs to stay as safe and healthy as possible.
Right.
The state has specifically said Rutherford County needs comprehensive sex education because they're lacking there, and our children are paying the price. Restricting access to information is causing actual physical harm to our children.
Yeah.
And I think that's really relevant because
Yeah.
the side that wants to restrict access to information, it says we're protecting the children. But what they're really doing is keeping them naive. They're keeping them ignorant. They don't have the words to express that what is happening to them, if something is happening to them, or to even know that it's wrong. Because if within their community, I'll say someone very close to me, oh no, what just happened? Am I still on there? Okay, my computer went dead.
No, you're fine.
Someone very, very close to me was a victim of the head of the North American child pornography ring.
Oh, Lord.
And they went through absolute hell. I didn't know PTSD was a thing, not PTSD, but post-traumatic stress psychosis involving amnesia and acting things out, and the torture that they went through. People get away with harming our children because our children don't know what is normal. This person's abuser said, I'm not the only one who does this. All men do this. Your father does this. This person does this. All the kids, it's just something that we don't talk about, because if you talk about it, I'm going to kill your dog and your sibling and your parents and your friends and your cat, but they get away with it because these children, this is a normal part of society. Every little girl gets touched or whatever. They don't understand that it's wrong until they see that representation in a book.
Yeah.
So having these books available actually protects our children. And it's part of why I fight so fiercely and why I have such a passion, because I know how childhood sexual assault can destroy a person's life, even if they survive it.
Yes.
The mental damage that is done is lifelong. And I refuse to stand by while we allow people to harm our children because someone wants to keep them ignorant because they don't want to think about it. It's icky. Well, it's a lot more icky once their child starts being abused. We need to talk about these things.
I was assaulted in college. No. I was assaulted in college, and I'm not going to go into it, but I am an assault victim. And the first thing the female officer said to me was, "What were you wearing?" And I was wearing a hoodie and blue jeans. Well, why was he in your room? We were on a date. And basically, effectively made it my fault. And so I never said anything to anybody, and I was struggling to deal with it because it was just, so this is just what I'm supposed to, this is just my life now. And a friend of mine, a friend of my, like the friend that took me to the ER, his younger sister figured out what happened, but didn't ask me, but it just very quietly sent me the book Speak, which is about an assault on a girl and the fallout afterwards and everything. And I read it and was like, okay, so this is not my fault.
No.
And it was
Absolutely
reading
not.
that and seeing all this stuff that she was doing was the same stuff that I was physically and mentally going through, made me feel so much less alone, and was like, okay, so this isn't my fault. This is not my fault.
It's not.
But when you're 21 and you're the first person that you go to and you tell them
Yeah,
and they say, well, what was he doing in your room? What were you wearing? Well, why didn't you say no?
right.
I did say no, and I got punched in the face and a split lip for it.
And for it to be an authority figure like a police officer, it's
Yeah,
like another way of victimizing you after you've already been
absolutely. Absolutely.
assaulted.
And there's
Yeah,
I
so
just want to
many,
say your age had nothing to do with how you felt about it because I was recently assaulted. I have a hearing on Monday, actually. So my headspace isn't the best trying to deal with it. And let's just say I am well more than double the age you were. And I'm still, I mean, I'm hearing the defense like how it's my fault. It's like it's not my fault. And
right.
I'm not saying everyone involved in the process has said that, but there's certain parts in the case, in the investigative report and that I read, and I'm like, seriously, are you trying to victim blame? Like,
Right.
it's, I don't think even being young has anything to do with it. It is
yeah.
just it blows your mind at any age.
Well,
And
and I
let me
think
say, because
too, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I think too that you've got all of these books and like what I said in my statement, you have all these books that cover racism and homophobia and suicide and sexual assault and the LGBTQ community and all these other subjects that are out in the world. They are there. I see them every day. I know people who are stereotyped in a racist manner. I know so many other women who have been assaulted. I know I myself in my senior year in high school felt suicidal. You know, so to act like these things aren't there and therefore since I it's too ugly to read about, so let's just ignore it and not read any books that make us feel represented and less alone is
Right.
tragic to me.
It is, and especially like, okay, so we've got three women in here in a virtual room. I was molested as a kid too. So we have all three of us have been sexually assaulted
Mhm.
and are talking about it now that we're adults and are are bringing it up but still dealing with it. And but how helpful would books have been? Like I'm thinking of like the kids with the book, Let's Talk About It. Like
Such
it's
a
been
good book.
proven in a court case, it stopped her from being molested. So it really bothers me because what we see is in the board meetings, there's always one particular, whether it's a school board meeting or a public library board meeting, who is leading the outrage from a religious standpoint. How many preachers have we seen in Rutherford County in the past 5 years
There you
be
go.
arrested,
There it
be
is.
arrested for molesting kids? How many preachers have we seen in Middle Tennessee in the past 5 years?
There it
How
is.
many coaches are we dealing with? And
Teachers. Teachers.
yes,
It is
yeah, yeah.
mind-blowing to me. So, and I'm not
Kids
gonna
need
get
access
into,
to this material to
yeah,
say, tell them
it's
this is wrong. And it's
yeah.
not a coincidence to me that the attack is happening on these books.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is look at history. Anytime that there's a book, oh gosh, and I want to get my history right, so please correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie. But I mean, because I know you know more than me. But it is my understanding that anytime a book is written that um bucks the establishment or challenges the thinking or says this isn't right and here's the consequences of that behavior, or here is this one heroine, and it's usually a female, which I find really interesting, that stands up and Joan of Arc's the situation, for lack of a better phrase. um that's
Yeah,
the first thing out of the gate to get banned or restricted, or oh well, we can't let our kids,
yeah,
well, you can't, like, look at The Handmaid's Tale. It's happening. It's happening as we
right.
speak in some in
Yeah,
And like I tried to watch the first season, I couldn't get through it because it simultaneously scared the shit out of me and made me so angry. And it is happening.
Mhm.
What's like you and I were talking about Texas about how they're starting to monitor women leaving the state. Are you pregnant? Why are you going
Yeah.
out of state? Or, like that
Yep.
is actively happening right now. And if people don't think that
Yep.
that's because of book restriction, that is the starting point for a lot of that is if you don't know what's going on, we can, like what you said, Tiffany or Carrie, if you don't know what's going on, we can control you better.
Yep.
Yeah, it's easier to control ignorant people. And
It
I
is.
think Margaret Atwood said it the best. The Handmaid's Tale was a warning, not an
Yeah.
instruction manual.
Yeah.
Yes. And she wrote that based on history. Like
Mhm.
it's disturbing, especially living in Tennessee, with a huge election coming up next month, in a matter of days from now. I had something I was gonna say. Oh shoot. I don't remember. Sorry.
When you think of
It
it, put
comes
your
back.
hand up and we'll all shut up
Yes.
so
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
say
yeah.
it again.
I
Yes. Yeah.
just, I was talking, we were talking about the Project 2024,
5.
2025.
25. I was like, is it 24 or 25? I couldn't remember. And somebody brought up that they don't think that certain nominees had anything to do with it. And the fact that people still are that, and I'm sorry,
I
I'm going to say
know.
delusional, that you still don't
Yeah.
think that he's not spearheading some of that, or that you think that some of that is not happening. It's happening right now. Like, especially
And if
like
that's
in
what they're
Tennessee,
putting out,
Florida, or like the trifecta right now of removing
yeah,
information from school
yeah,
system. Like the law in Tennessee right now for having books in the classroom. Governor Lee had this law passed to my understanding where all the teachers had to pull all of the books out of their classroom and then they had to be
Yes.
approved by a committee, and then if that committee didn't approve those books, the books that weren't approved had to go on a different shelf higher up out of reach, and those kids had to get permission from their parents. Like, teachers don't already have a hard enough workload. You're
I
going
know.
to make them do this whole other thing that is not flipping necessary.
They
Right.
have to keep a public list of every
Mhm.
book in their classroom.
And I know
So if they
some
get
teachers
books,
that
new
just took
books,
them
they have
all
to
out.
keep that updated.
Yeah. I know some of my friends that are teachers just took them all out because they just don't have time to do that with everything else that they're having to
Right.
do.
Well,
Yep.
that's one of the other issues. It's called soft censorship. It is illegal to remove books because of their content,
Hmm.
even if it's content you disagree with.
Right.
And it seems like some people understand that. So rather than removing the books with the content, they write laws in very vague ways. So people don't know if they're breaking the law or not. Like, does this book meet that stand? I don't know. The way the law is written, I can't tell, which we saw a lot of at that last board
Yeah, we
meeting,
Yeah.
did.
a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
Um, because of that, what they do is like, well, I don't want to risk it. So I'm not going to put these books in. And that's called soft censorship. It's also done through funding. Like, we're not going to fund you if you
Hmm.
have any objectionable materials. And because things are not well defined, they end up censoring a lot more than what would have been censored in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we try to get through to librarians is teach them is like, never make your own decision in soft censor because you're unsure. If you're unsure, keep it and
Yeah.
get clarification. This is why I have hope that this state law will be turned over in the very near future, because
Yeah.
you've got both the supremacy clause and the vagueness doctrine saying that this law is illegal. And that is also
Yeah.
why we don't see every school district following this law, because I guess in a lot of school districts, they seem to understand how the law works better and they read it and go, yeah, but better to err on the side of caution and follow federal law than to follow this state law and get sued over it. Unfortunately,
Well,
we just live in a district that says, no, go ahead and sue us.
one of the things
And
I
part
found,
of the
I'm sorry, go ahead, Carrie. Or
no,
one
well, I was just going to say too, part of the problem that it's people, run for school board for, in my opinion, two distinct reasons, right? When I ran for school board, um, this past August, a couple months ago, it was because I believe public education. I believe that our public education system in Rutherford County is under
Yeah,
threat.
I
I
do
believe
too.
that threat, some of that threat comes from the board, certain board member helps.
Sure.
Um, and then you see also other people, I believe, are elected to the school board because they see it as a stepping stone to a higher political office. And I believe we're seeing that right now the with one of our board members who's
Mhm.
preparing and already, as far as I understand, is already bringing in endorsements for when they run for state house in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's the issue too, is that do these people really believe what they're saying, or do they know that they can appeal to certain congregations and certain groups of people who
Yeah.
are the minority in our county, but are so loud? Everyone believes that they're the majority.
Yeah.
And also because we have such abysmal voter turnout, that they're the people that, are whipped up into a frenzy and go to the polls. They're told to go vote, you know. So, I mean,
I had a
it's just so
librarian.
frustrating.
Yeah, well, I had a librarian come into the store and I cannot remember what her name was. God help me. I've met so many librarians and teachers in the last 2 weeks that have come in to support my bookstore. God love you all. You have no idea what that has meant to me, that many people showed up to support me. And so they brought up this thing called a book sanctuary that I was looking at the southern, so what is it? It's the trying to find the website again, but it's called the sjslj.com. And they talked about book sanctuaries create safe spaces for banned books and readers. And so what they're saying is that I'm sorry, a book sanctuary is a place where endangered books, the right to read, and intellectual freedom is protected and access to the challenged and banned titles is ensured. It can be an entire city or institution, a library, church, or school, or one classroom or designated area within a larger facility. So this, according to this article, it started in a school in Florida. Coral Gables, the sanctuary for banned books at Coral Gables, Florida Congregational Church, which I love that a church did this. They
Yeah.
do a standing room only crowd in early June when it held a poetry reading and giveaway books of challenged books in Florida. And Amanda Gorman, who did The Hill That We Climb, that spoke at Bible.
Mhm.
So she donated 1,200 copies of The Hill We Climb, which has been challenged, mind you, and moved from the elementary and middle grade section of the library at the K through 8 schools in Florida. So I want to figure out, and I think I was thinking about this last night because I was thinking about this podcast and what I want to do. And I was talking to you about, making sure that I have banned books in my bookshop as well. Like I'm going to go get some today. I want to see if we can contact school library or not necessarily school libraries, but like public libraries and other bookstores, and be like, let's start a book sanctuary. Let's start a list, like a green book list of book sanctuaries where you can go and ensure that you can get a copy of that book. And I've been working up an email. Yes.
Regarding that, we have two options here in Rutherford County. I want to make sure I say them while I'm thinking of them. We
Yeah.
have boroughbandbooks.com, which you can go to and get a copy of it. It's a library. You borrow the book, you read it, you give it back. But
Wait,
I
I'm
also
sorry,
want to say
burrowbankswhat.com?
boroughbandbooks.com.
Okay.
Like for Murfreesboro, so it's BORO
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
bandbooks.com.
All right, gotcha. Okay.
And then the ALA has responded to all of this restricting access to information.
Mm.
And there is now a digital library that everyone can access
Yep, you told me
and
about that.
access any and all books that get restricted at schools and public libraries. I mean, I
Yeah.
would love to have a physical location in that, what you're suggesting. I just
Yeah.
want to say that thankfully there are good people out there that are making sure people can access it. The main issue is they're losing that browsing capability, which is something the courts have said over and over again is so important. You should be able to just look through the bookshelves and it should be there with everything else. That's what the law states.
Yeah.
But at least now, if somebody knows they want these books, they will have the option through Borough Band Books and the ALA's website, their digital libraries. So,
I
Well,
think
and
we should have like a separate meeting and figure out, because we have to know, we know church leaders that are progressive and
Yeah.
inclusive and accepting, not just you're okay even though you're a sinner for being queer. It's
Yeah. And
you are as you were meant to be and you're accepted
I
here.
don't want it to be political. You know what I mean? I want it to
Yeah.
just be like,
Yeah.
hey, these are the banned books. I am a
Right.
I'm a certified book sanctuary. So you can come and get these books
Yes.
here, you know. And I feel like
Yeah.
we need something like that because the fact that that's in Florida where they're having the same problem that we are and that movement is going on, I want, like when
Yeah.
I started my bookstore, it never occurred to me I was going to be an activist. I just
Right.
wanted to start my little
Right.
bookstore because it was the only job I
Same.
ever wanted to do that
Yeah.
didn't make me want to die inside. And I love talking with books. And the very real fear right now that I would not be able to do this job or that I would be restricted in the way that I do this job because somebody's afraid of the written word.
Mhm.
It's just I don't even have a word for how, because it makes me feel so many things. I'm afraid,
Yeah.
I'm angry. I'm angry that I'm being bullied for that, but it's not going to stop me.
Right.
I mean, and it's terrifying that my kid might not be able to read certain books in a school that I think that she should be allowed to read.
Right.
but their
Yeah.
AP credits are at risk too.
Mhm.
If they were following the letter of the law, sorry, if they were following the letter of the state law, which is
Hmm.
illegal because we're ignoring federal and constitution, but if
Sure,
they
sure,
were to
sure.
just follow the wording in the state law, there will be no Shakespeare in our schools. There's so much that would be gone. Right now, they've banned Beloved, which is on the AP reading list, which means that our students could face an exam that has a question about Beloved that they will not be able to answer because they weren't able to read the book because of what our school board has done, and they will not get their 4 or 5 they need on the exam in
Hmm.
order to get university credit. So they will have just wasted that whole thing.
Yeah.
My son was originally registered in a Shakespeare class this year. He switched that right away because we didn't know if he'd be able to access actual Shakespeare
I got
in
him.
that class because of the new state law. Well, no, he switched classes because
Yeah.
we don't want to put his grades at risk.
Yeah, of
But
Yeah.
course.
think about that. My son dropped a Shakespeare class. How many other students are not taking Shakespeare classes? Because
Yeah.
according to this Age Appropriate Materials Act, Shakespeare should be restricted and our students should not have access to it.
Yeah.
I'm
All
sitting
the
here
sex ed
looking at my
trail,
bookshelf right now. I have nine copies
Well,
of
that's because you're a pornographer,
Shakespeare.
Lindsay.
Oh, I know. But it's just, like I took every class in college. I had read everything that Shakespeare had ever written by like eighth grade. I have like classic editions. I've got collegiate editions. I've got graphic novels of Shakespeare. I have a Shakespeare tattoo. I have been to Shakespeare's house in Stratford upon Avon. The mere fact that that would be, it's one of them. It's one of the things that made me love literature. Reading
yeah.
Othello, and Macbeth, and I didn't know that. That makes me so sad because he's
Well,
missing out.
our school board has not gone after Shakespeare directly yet.
Right.
However, the way they are interpreting the law and cherry picking sections of material. And if you've read all of Shakespeare, you know darn well, name one Shakespeare story that doesn't have a penis joke in it. Like, quite seriously, name one. It's Shakespeare
I don't
was
think I
smutty.
can.
No, you can't, because it's in all of it. Like, what bothers me the most is you'll hear board members say things like, well, don't worry, we're not coming after the anatomy class textbook. Don't worry, we're not coming after the Bible. Don't worry, we're not coming after Shakespeare, whatever. But what they're not realizing is the way that they're misinterpreting the law.
It's a very slippery slope.
The exact same arguments they are making for the material they're removing, the exact same arguments can be made for this material they said they aren't. So also what they're saying is, don't worry, we're the only people challenging the books, and because it's not on my list, it'll be okay. Thinking that, well, don't you realize that anyone in the public can make a challenge? And if they follow the precedent that you have set by taking out a paragraph, a sentence, whatever, that they can do the exact same thing with these other materials. And if you remove one, you have to remove the other. And they don't seem to have any clue. They're like, don't worry, we won't come after that.
Yeah.
But
and we have a fully conservative school board right now. Like, all 7 members are conservative. But there were extremists that ran for 2 of the 4 seats that were up for re-election, and they lost. But what happens if a far right extremist gets in and they don't have a respect for education? There's no predicting what they'll go after then, because it's all about shock value. In my opinion, it's all about restricting as much as you can and right, owning the libs. How often do we hear that phrase here? So there's not a respect for the system, public education system. There's not a respect, unfortunately, that we see a lot with some of the extremists here. A respect for reading, for literature, for education. In fact, education is something that we often see attacked here now. The fact that you are wanting an education for your kids and want them to be taught outside of the church is being attacked so regularly here now.
My daughter,
so you can't predict.
In Rutherford County schools, in middle school, my daughter was lectured almost every day about college is a scam. Don't go to college. Don't go to college. It's a waste of your time. It's a scam. Don't go to college. Whatever you do, don't go to college. It's all a racket. It's all a scam. You can't trust people that go to college. Don't go to college. My daughter was told that on pretty much a daily basis, not to waste her time and money. But it's something in our society that's really happened over the last maybe 10 years or so. Is we seem to have lost respect for expertise. We think that someone who's spent decades studying something and working in it, and they know all the little nuances, and they have a real grasp of it. Your average person thinks, well, my opinion's just as important as theirs. We seem to have lost that respect. And they, like, the educated elite, or, whatever phrases they use. It's like, so we're saying it's better to be uneducated and ignorant than to actually know what we're talking about. And that seems to be something that recently has become valued. They've stopped respecting your education, your experience, your expertise. Like, do we want our doctors to no longer follow the American Medical Association, or our dentists to no longer follow the American Dentist Association? No, we have those organizations to give guidance. Well, here, they don't want librarians following the American Library Association. They've removed all references to the ALA from everything. We used to have to, librarian would have to, and board members would have to pledge that they will follow the ALA's rules and the freedom to read statement and the ALA's Bill of Rights and all of that. And they just removed all of it, and they say they don't trust it. And then they give misinformation, like at that steering committee meeting where I went crazy, because they said the ALA is banning books. The ALA has banned Of Mice and Men and To Kill a Mockingbird in 1984 and all of that. And nobody corrected them, which is when my hand went up, because no, they keep a list of what books other people are restricting access to. They are not suggesting it. And yet these politicians, because I spoke to a lot of them before and after the meeting, were saying, well, I've been told even the ALA has said not to follow them. And then, well, the ALA is telling us not to read these books and not to give these books out. The amount, it drives me batty that we have lost all respect for people who know what they're talking about, but instead we want to follow someone who just, maybe has some sort of charisma, a nice smile, whatever. It's like, well, I say it, so let's do what I say. My opinion is just as important as the person that has multiple advanced degrees and spent decades working in this field.
Yeah.
And
The
it just drives me
disinformation and misinformation that is spread is becoming part of the culture here, and it's scary because we do see also attacks on like the AMA, and like the American Pediatric Group, like now there's new groups coming up because
the agenda for
we want to
affirming
spread.
care. Yeah.
Yes. And so these people that say that they're specialists and do all of these studies where it's not medically and scientifically accurate information, but they've created a group and they have an acronym and they're loud. So let's trust them because what they're saying is something I agree with.
Yeah.
And that way I don't have to consider the scientific and medical merit of it.
Well, we could sit here and discuss this all day long, I know, but I think we're about out of time. But the last thing I want to say before we go is how proud I am of you guys, because the one thing that I have seen you guys do, and I was really appreciative of that, which is why I've continued to volunteer with you guys, is because when we had that school board meeting and then people were like, well, what about the Bible? It has all this stuff too. We should ban the Bible. And you guys immediately were like, no tit for tat. We're not going to do that. We're going to, and I was so proud of you guys. And that to me told me you guys are doing the right thing because you're not doing the tit for tat. You're trying to keep it respectful and legal. And I really appreciate that as someone who is on the outside and being invited into the circle, and seeing that you guys are still trying to no tit for tat. We're just going to do what the law says. I just really respect and appreciate that. And I respect everything you guys are doing. And I'm so proud that I'm being allowed to help in whatever way that I can. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. We had no idea when you spoke that you'd be targeted. It's ridiculous, but I won't say I'll speak for myself, but I have such a huge amount of respect for you and the way that you've handled the situation and your business. I knew of you before, but I'd never met you before all of this. And I just have a huge amount of respect for you and what you do and the way that you've continued to carry yourself despite what's going on. So
well, you can
thank
give
you for
that
everything.
credit to my husband because my husband has very much taught me that no matter what, have your story straight, keep your house in order, have proof, and always maintain the high ground because no matter what, that is going to be your biggest asset is to keep your head and don't lose your temper, keep everything calm, keep everything above board. And I mean, if you think I don't want to scream at people and raise my fist in anger, no, I come home and scream into a pillow and mother, ugh! But in public, I'm not going to do that because I feel like you guys, I want to be seen as someone who's rational and calm and respectful. And so I'm going to fight it the way I can, but I am going to keep my wits about me, So thank you.
You have to find ways to get it out.
Yeah.
I'm the crazy one in the group. I'm the one that can't bite my tongue. I'm the one that yells and screams and says all the
I
inappropriate
love that for
things,
the first time in my life, I'm not the one that's the crazy person for the first time in my life, I'm the rational, calm one. It's amazing.
But what I always say is I may be crazy. I get emotional. It's because of extreme frustration.
Yeah.
Law is black and white. And I feel like I'm walking around, everyone's going, 2 + 2 is 5. 2 + 2 is 5. No, 2 + 2 is 5. And it makes my head want to explode with how wrong They are. So I may be crazy, I may be loud, I may be hysterical, whatever label you want to give me. It doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
I am sticking with this is what the law says.
Yep.
Follow the law. You do not have the right, school board official, to take away our children's rights and put our children in harm's way because of your specific actions. I will stand up for my children. I'm standing up for everybody's children. So I may be crazy, I may be hysterical, lose my temper, whatever, however you want to classify me. But it doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Right.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you on Tuesday night because there is a meeting on Tuesday night at 5:30 at the Rutherford County School Board. And is it the working meeting or just a regular meeting?
Yeah, it's the work session.
Okay.
And then
Thursdays, the regular, and Monday is the public library board meeting where Judy Bloom's Forever has been challenged. So they will be talking about restricting access to information at the public library board meeting Monday evening, I think at 5.
Okay. That's the 21st of October. Yep.
All right.
That's
well,
tonight.
You guys, thank you guys so much for everything. And thank you guys all for listening. And we just hope that you take everything that we've said into consideration and, pay attention to what's going on in your counties, because if you think it's not happening in your town, it is, I promise you. All right. Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a great day, and thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow.